Hey there, math people. Today we're taking a look at the circumference of a circle. Let's start by defining what a circle is. A circle is the set of all points that are equal distance from a point that is called the center. The center. In this case, S is the center of our circle. And that's what a circle is, the set of all points that are equal distance from that point. Now, the distance from the center to the edge of the circle is called the radius. So this right here, that line segment, is called the radius. From S to R. So SR is the radius of this particular circle. Our next definition is that when you have a straight line segment that passes through the center of the circle and whose endpoints lie on the circle, that's called the diameter. So this line segment right here is called the diameter. So line segment TR is equal to the diameter of this circle. Our next definition is the distance around the circle, and that's what we're talking about today. The measure of the distance around the circle is called the circumference. So if you start here and go all the way around the circle, that is the circumference. And please make sure that you're writing down all the highlighted material, anything that I write, and all the diagrams. Now, a really long time ago, a guy named Archimedes noticed a relationship between circumference and diameter. And he figured out that if the circumference of a circle is divided by its diameter, you always get this number, 3.141592653559, and it goes on forever. It's an irrational number, and it never repeats, and it never ends. That number is called pi, and the symbol for pi is right there. And we use pi for all kinds of calculations when it comes to circles. And instead of using this really long decimal, we just use 3.14 to estimate. Okay? Now, there's some other information that you need to know. First of all, whenever we're talking about radius, we use the variable r. If we're talking about diameter, we use d to represent diameter, and we use capital C to represent circumference. Okay? That's really important to remember because, like I said, pi is equal to the circumference divided by the diameter. Interestingly enough, you should notice that diameter is the same thing as 2 times the radius, because you're going from the outside to the center to the outside, so the diameter is the same thing as 2 times the radius. So pi could be circumference divided by diameter or circumference divided by 2 times the radius. Now, if you want to find the circumference of a circle and you know the diameter, you just need to adjust the equation like this. Okay? So we know that circumference is equal to pi times diameter. We want to find the circumference divided by diameter is equal to pi. That's what we're talking about. And so if you divide both sides by or multiply both sides by the diameter, these two cancel each other out, leaving us with the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. Or the circumference is equal to pi times 2 times r. Or the more appropriate way to rewrite that would be 2 times pi times r. So 2 pi r. This is the most acceptable, and as is this. Circumference equals pi times diameter, or circumference equals 2 pi r. Those are both perfectly fine. Now, let's look at a couple of circles. Here we have a circle that has a diameter. We know it's a diameter because it goes clear across. The diameter is 8. And so we know the circumference is equal to pi times the diameter. So that's pi times 8. So the circumference is equal to 8 pi. Now that's the exact measurement, and that's in feet. Always label your answers. But if we use 3.14, then the circumference would be about 8 times 3.14, which is about 25.12 feet. So this would be the exact measure, this would be the approximate measure, and this is what you would be using if you were trying to build something with circles. Okay? Now, on this next one, we don't have the diameter, we only have the radius, and the radius is 5, and so we can use circumference equals 2 pi r. Okay? So that's 2 times pi times 5, because that's the radius. We rearrange these a little bit, so it'll be 2 times 5 times pi. And 2 times 5 is 10 pi. And that's 10 pi yards. You always want to make sure that you label. That's the exact measure. Now, if you want to find the estimate, like if you're going to build something, then you'd go, oh, okay, well, the circumference would be about 10 times 3.14. And 10 times 3.14 is 31.4 yards according to my calculator. And that would be the estimate, and that'd be good enough if you were trying to build something using circles. Now, if you know the circumference and you want to find what the diameter is, the equation changes a little bit. So, we know that circumference is equal to pi times diameter. Now, if we want to find diameter, we have to get diameter by itself. We would divide both sides by pi. Now these two pi's would cancel each other out, and so the circumference divided by pi would equal the diameter. Or, the diameter is equal to circumference divided by pi. But remember, what if you're trying to find the radius? Then you have to remember that the radius is always equal to the diameter divided by 2. So if you're trying to find the radius, you'd have to first find the diameter and then divide that by 2. So let's look at our first problem. A circle has a circumference of 12 pi yards. A circumference of 12 pi yards. So it goes all the way around. That's 12 pi yards, okay? And so we're trying to find the diameter. Well, remember, diameter is equal to the circumference divided by pi. Well, we know the circumference. The circumference is 12 pi. Divide 12 pi by pi. Those two cancel each other out, and the diameter ends up being 12 yards, and so our circle has a diameter of 12 yards across. Okay, but what's the radius of that circle? Well, you just have to remember, if we're looking for the radius is always equal to the diameter divided by 2. And we know the diameter was 12. Divide that by 2, and that, my friends, equals 6. So the radius is equal to 6 yards. And that's all you need to know about circumference, how to use it to find diameter, to find radius, or how to use diameter and radius to find the circumference. All right, have a great day. Don't forget to be awesome, and I'll see you next time.